All right, hello everyone. This is Brendan, and due to high Instagram requests, I am going to show you how I edited the photo on the right from the photo on the left here. So I'm going to answer a few questions that I've gotten, and then I'm going ahead and show you how I did this tutorial. And throughout it, you'll probably realize that I have no clue what I'm doing, and I just figured it out as I go. So we're going to try and see if I can make the left go to the right again, because every time I edit by hand, I don't use presets normally. You'll see some presets, I'll show you them, but they never give you a final result. So I'm going to edit this one by hand, and we'll see if I can achieve the same result as the first time I edited this photo. But yeah, some questions I've gotten is, is this photo on the right bracketed, or is it a single exposure? The answer to that question is it's a single exposure. It was edited only off of the photo on the left, which is the before, just one raw file, which was used to create the photo on the right. The other question was it handheld? Answer is yes, 1/400th of a second, handheld, and then shot at f1.4, ISO 100, on a 35mm 1.4 Sigma art lens on a Sony A7 III. And so I also should note I use a circular polarizer, which I recommend for car photography, which is applied along the windshield and the hood and the front of the car because it removes glare and darkens the paint a little bit. And you can tell I didn't use it on the side because all this bad glare in the window and the side of the car. If I use a polarizer in this photo, it'd more look like the right side and the after, which I darkened in Photoshop. So I'd recommend for like, if you wanted this to be like a really nice professional photo, I would bracket it. So I'd do an exposure that looked like, something like this for the ground, and then a middle one, and then a darker one for the sky, and then I'd also, in your middle exposure, kind of for the car, I would have done a polarizer for going along the top of the car, which a polarizer turns, so it only can polarize certain areas of the car at once. So you'd have to do two polarized shots to get the whole car polarized. So the first, shot, I'd polarize the windshield, the hood, and the front, and then the next one I'd polarize the side of the car. And then you could go and bring all those 5 images into Lightroom, edit them, then put them in the Photoshop and merge them. But I was able to get the result that I wanted based off this one exposure. So that's how I'm going to show you how to do it today, because this is normally how I shoot. Normally I'm lazy, photos for personal use, not really going anywhere except for Instagram. So I didn't really care. It was just hanging out at Rocky Mountain National Park, grabbed the shot real quick, and that's why I didn't set it up on a tripod or bracket or anything, and hence why I shot it dark to, be able to just use, I just wanted to be able to use one photo and edit from it. So, shot dark to not blow out the sky, to keep detail on it. So when we edit the photo, information's there. Sony does well with the shadow, so information's down here. So I always tend to shoot underexposed and try not to blow out the sky, because if you darken the sky and when it's blown out, it'll just turn gray and look rather icky. So moving on, I guess we get started with this edit. If anyone has any questions, you can reach out to me on Instagram at bstofs, b_stofs. But otherwise, let's see how close I can get this photo to the original. So go ahead and reset it. This is how it originally looked, and this is how we're going to make it look. All right. So some people also ask me, how did you choose this photo to edit? It's just I wanted the full car shot I just wanted the full shot of the car for Instagram. I like these 3/4 views. I like how the car looks from the front. So, I chose this one. I think this is a good angle for this car. And the 35mm really complements this car because it adds some distortion, because it's a little bit wider of a lens versus the 85. I don't look like how boxy this car looks from an 85mm lens because you're so far away. Some people do. I don't. I like the 35mm look. So, and also I'm shot it pretty close to the car just because I was focused on capturing the car and not any of the landscape around it necessarily. So it kind of just depends on personal taste and style and composition and use for how you want to frame your shots and such. But, this is pretty much, I'll end up cropping it later, but this is pretty much what I want in the photo. And Normally I shoot photos how I want them to be framed and how I want them to come out, but slightly rotate them and stuff in post just so they're perfect. So right now we're in the develop module in Lightroom. You can see the presets on the left. This is one of my more used ones that I created, which it was using like that really rainy E24 picture I took a while back that blew up, but it kind of has like a warm kind of filmy look to it. It has like a lot of grain in it. Not going to use any of these. We're just going to edit this all by hand. It's kind of a waste of time to try and start off with these. They make it look worse, honestly. Except, ooh, this one. That one's okay. So to get started here, it's always key to have a good white balance and a good tint, but I can't really see what's going on in this photo, so let's brighten it up really quick. So for most of my photos I always bring down highlights. It gives it kind of a crusty look when you go too hard on the highlights, bringing highlights down and shadows up, so I don't always max it out, but going to negative 90 and plus 90, it brings back a lot more of the information. It makes the exposure a lot more consistent throughout, and we can see, the sky is now at a decent exposure, the ground's at a decent exposure, the car's at a decent exposure. You can kind of see what's going on. I always bump up the whites a little bit to give it like a little bit of pop in the photo. And then the blacks, sometimes I take them down, sometimes I take them up. We're probably going to leave it alone for now. And we can always come back and go through all these, but I kind of start at the top of the basic and work my way down through all these panels, which will pretty much touch most of them today. So I can already see that the photo's kind of blue. I'm pretty sure I shot it on auto white balance, but it's blue. So let's just go ahead and warm it up. I want kind of like a warm vibe for this. And then the tint, not too far off. But basically, the temperature adjusts how blue or orange it is, obviously, and the tint adjusts how green or pink it is. Sorry if I, missed some explanation on some of this stuff. I'm so used to doing it that I don't really know what other people know or don't know. But I always slide these back and forth to see what looks best on my screen. And it should be noted that I'm editing on like a 2013 MacBook Pro. So the display is very different from my iPhone 11 Pro, which tends to be a little bit green and less contrasty than this display. So the display you're looking at this on, it might look a little green, it might look a little pink, but to me, it's looking perfectly in balance. So I just slide this back and forth and then, just figure out what looks good. In this case, this looks like a good balance between green and pink right here. Maybe a hair pink. Yeah, we'll just do 3 for now. And so contrast, surprisingly, a lot of people probably go positive here. I'm going negative. I'm going to make it a little bit flatter, and you'll see why in a second. In our exposure, funny enough that people were complaining how I didn't shoot this photo proper exposure, but, look, it looks pretty fine now. So, it's brightened up a hair, but look at that. It's already fixing itself for shooting really dark. Clarity looks disgusting. Keep it low. Normally, some people really overdo it, and I cannot stand it. It just does not give a nice, smooth, clean look, in my opinion. Personal preference, I keep it low. Texture is a better one to use. It makes things kind of like pop a little bit more, but it can also make things look a little crustier. Let's do 15 for this one. I think that's good. So already we can see if we hit this toggle that might be the tone curve toggle. That sucks. I wish there was a basic toggle. But already we can see this is how much of a difference we've made just in this top panel of Lightroom. And if I was going to stop here, I'd obviously add contrast. And, some people would stop here and say, all right, that's good to post. But we're going to keep going and make this photo perfect. So we'll go ahead and go back. I'm just hitting Y, by the way, on the keyboard to go back and forth between before and after. But, all right, let's keep moving on. So the tone curve is where I'm going to add contrast back, because right now it looks pretty flat. And so we're going to use the RGB, adjust the whole photo, along like the tone curve, adjust the whole photo at once. And you'll see there's 4 different channels. There's RGB and then red, green, blue, which I'll go into red, green, and blue here in a second if you don't know what they do. But RGB is going to adjust the whole thing. So it works from blacks to whites pretty much. So you have blacks, shadows, midtones, highlights, and then like whites. So this point down here is going to right now it's adjusting everything, but if we click and drag and add another point, now we see we're not affecting our blacks. We're bringing our shadows down. Midtones are a little bit higher than the dotted line here, so they're being pulled up a little bit. And then the highlights are being pulled up and the whites aren't being affected. I never touch the whites. The blacks, if you pull it up, it creates that faded look. Don't really mess around with that too much. We'll add a little bit, but I don't want too much. And then I'm going to bring the shadows down. We can add a point here just for a little bit of extra pop. For whatever reason, when you add this, pull this midtones up a little bit, just helps it pop a little bit. And we'll do that. And then highlights, that works for me. Honestly, I might even take the contrast down a little bit from there. And the exposure will take down. Okay. So if we toggle tone curves, you see it's going to add a lot of contrast. Honestly, might be a little too dark in the shadows. Let's move this down here. Okay. I'm good with that. That's looking decently good. I'm going to bump the warmth a little bit up, but that's looking good. Like, look. You know, you could stop here and say, wow, that photo looks great, you know. Or not great, but it looks good. You know, it's worth posting on Insta compared to the original. So, you know, some of you can stop here and be like, all right, you know, we've really made this photo look nice. We've brought back the shadows and we made everything look like it's in perfect exposure. We've fixed the complaints of the people that have been complaining that I shoot too dark. Thank you to those people, because this, I agree, is very dark, but is very recoverable. And as we look in, a little grainy, but honestly, not crazy. So a little bit of noise reduction and you're going to be good to go. All right. So now we're moving to my favorite panel, which is color. And this is where I notice, you know, honestly, this is where I get, you know, what I consider to like be like, you know, it's like color grading. It gives you that like final image that just looks really nice. You know, all the colors when you're grading them to look a certain way, it just, for whatever reason, makes it look, this looks kind of like too vivid and blue and kind of weird colors. And you can make these colors look kind of cinematic, I guess the way you could say. So we'll start with red. Can't see the taillights. There's no red in this photo. If I was to desaturate it, saturate it, no change. I'm not really going to touch this. I'll leave it be. Just for a quick explanation, we'll do it with orange. Hue obviously changes the color of the orange tab that we're in. So it'll change the color of the orange when you're in the orange tab. We'll change the hue to red or yellow. Pretty self-explanatory. Saturation, make it more colorful, less colorful. Luminance makes it brighter or darker. In this situation, I like these corner lights to be kind of bright. I didn't want them on, but I want them to stand out and pop. So I'll add a little bit of saturation and I'll add a little bit of luminance. And you'll see that they're a little bit more visible and popping out a little bit more at you than before. And be careful, this stuff will adjust other things in the photo too, so be conscious of what's going on in the whole photo with it, like it's affecting the sky back here a little bit. But with yellow, the only yellow in this photo is really the grass and the sky, which I'm fine. I want it to look a little bit more orangey. I don't want to look as yellow. We'll do that. Saturation we can bump a bit. Be careful. It'll start looking really weird if you do too much of any of these. Luminance will make it look all fuzzy if you do too little or too less. Like, look at that in here. Horrible. So we'll just go, we'll probably take it down to here just because it's a little, we'll fix that later. When we go in the Photoshop, we'll make the sky darker. You'll see in a bit. And then for this one, I think it's probably good around there. I like that. And then green, I like desaturating greens in general. So there's no green in this photo, but bye. And then you'll notice this aqua is always really visible in the interior or like through the windshield. So there will probably be a little bit of aqua in here, and we'll go ahead and desaturate that just because I don't like that. It's a white interior. It should just be black and white in here for the most part. So it's hard to tell, but you know, if you saturate and go to saturated, unsaturated in here, very aquish, don't want that. I'll desaturate it most of the way. The reason I don't saturate it all the way is when colors transition from like green to aqua or aqua to blue, you'll start seeing weird lines if you desaturate it all the way if you're not careful. So I just always keep a little bit of color in there. And then blue's my most played with color in the colors tab. Colorado has a really blue sky, so normally I desaturate it pretty heavy because it gets a really bad blue reflection on the top of the car from the sky, and I don't like that. So normally I'll desaturate that, and I'll also darken it. You can see it's darkening the sky, the mountains, and the hood. So I'll just go down a little bit with it. That's probably enough. I want a little bit of a blue sky. So there we go. If we turn off the colors, you know, it's just, I hate the color back in here in the mountains. It just is a little too vibrant. We'll turn it back on. It's a little bit better looking. We'll bump the orange up a hair more, I think. The purples will bring down. Probably notice that in the mountains, if anything. The blue, I want to bring back just a hair. And then the magentas, there's none in this photo either. We'll just bring it down just to make sure. This one we can bring down a little bit too. Not going to really change anything. All right, so colors obviously don't make a huge difference, but I think it looks better. There's been crazier results from the colors tab. There's not a whole lot of colors going on. It's really just blue and orange. So, you know, not the best photo to demonstrate colors. Like if we had a lot of greens in this photo, you can do greens and oranges are my favorite colors to change in here. You can make them look really nice. So yeah, only other thing I'm going to say is if you look at the back windshield, it's getting a little aqua-y back there. So let's try and change the green to yellow, and you'll see how it fixes that. We bring the luminance down, and that's going to look good for me. There we go. So we went from this to that, and I think that looks a heck of a lot better, especially in the back of the car. Back in here, bam, looks way better, and now it's more consistent. And since we darken this a little bit, I'm only going to darken the sky later in Photoshop, and since we darken this, it will help us out later. All right, split toning, don't really use, never had good results from it. Sharpening and auto defaults to like 40 for me. Just going to bring it back a little bit. And then noise reduction, we're going to apply a little bit of, but we'll mainly do most of that in Photoshop. And then vignetting, this lens apparently has really bad vignetting, but I want the ground and the sky to be dark, so I'm just going to keep it all the way down. Well, actually, I'll go to like 10. And this one I'll take back a little bit. This is all kind of personal preference stuff, vignetting and distortion, so use it how you like. Also, grain down here is really cool if you want to replicate like a film look. I do this in some of my photos. You can see here it gets really grainy if you want. It's just to stylize it. I'm not going to use it in this photo because I want it to look nice and clean. But yeah, so basically just in Lightroom, without using any masks or anything, we were able to get here from there, which this photo is honestly looking really nice. It just vignetted a little bit for me. Let's take that up a little bit. I think it looks better like right in here. And how I determine how to do most of these corrections is just by, you know, my eye and what I'm used to and how I want the look. So it might be different from you. This might look like shit to you right now, and that's fine, but this is how I want the look personally, so that's what we're doing. All right, so already, you know, I'd say this photo, you know, you could post on Instagram. You could be happy with it. You could live with it. It looks pretty good, but we're going to make it look better. So just to compare, this is how our photo looks right now, still a little flat, and then we're going to go from the left to the right in Photoshop here in a second. So yeah, let's begin this process. It might be kind of long. This video might be long from here, but stick with me. Let's go back. And honestly, some of you right now are probably saying the left looks better than the right. Hey, yeah, might. Who knows? Anywho. Yeah. So our goal right now is I want to darken the sky more. I want the front of the car and the wheels to pop more. I want to darken the side of the car more. And the ground could be a little bit darker probably. So we're going to pull it in the Photoshop and do that. And we're also going to clone stamp out some of the issues with this photo. In the one I posted on Instagram, I clone stamped out all this. The rust, the crack here, the silver paint that's kind of chipping off on the bottom, this. Fix all the issues with the car really. So let me just get out of that really quick. what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this in the Photoshop kind of like it's a bracketed photo. I'm going to put one dark exposure in for the sky, which I'll save that. We'll go ahead and right click, edit in Adobe Photoshop. And then we're also going to put a brighter version in for like the car, which we're still going to keep it relatively dark. Yeah, we'll put this in with you. Edit in Adobe Photoshop for both of those. And my computer's pretty slow, so it'll take a second for the put it in. So I'll come back in 1 second. All right. I'm going to crop all these photos in the end, so that's why I haven't cropped it or rotated or anything. It's mainly framed how I want it. We'll shave off a little bit on the left side, and then I post it by 4 by 5 on Instagram, so we'll do that later. But yeah, let's do this. So this is our brighter version. I just am going to drag this over to the other one that we put in the Photoshop, which is our darker version. Just drag them on top of each other, make sure they're lined up, which I did a bad job of there. Right there. Okay. So we have, obviously, I'm going to label these real quick. Just double clicked on it. Brighter, darker, bam. All right, so you can see darker one we can see, brighter one we can see. And just for reference, I'm going to pull in our final photo as well, which is this one, final one. And I don't know if I mentioned this before because it's like my 10th attempt on the on doing this tutorial, but the final photo that we get when I'm done will probably be a little different than the final photo that I did last time, just because we're doing it by hand. I don't always do the same things twice. It's all by eye. So more than likely these photos will look different, but right away you can notice from where we're at that I really darken the ground, really brighten up the front of the car, the wheels, darken the sky. This might be a little too dark on the ground, but that's kind of how I wanted it for Instagram. So we probably won't go as crazy this time, because already it's, our darker one isn't, the ground's probably pretty good on that one already. Just darken it a little bit throughout here. But yeah, gonna turn off the, I'm just gonna call this old final. Gonna just turn that off. We don't need that for now. It's just gonna be used as a comparison later. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pull our darker photo up, and we're gonna pull the sky from this one, and it's also a good idea to cut out the windows in this one just to keep it the same exposure. But since these windows are already darker than the sky is right now, we might be able to get away with just cutting out the sky and not the windows. So let's see if we can take that little shortcut. And then for this one, to cut out the sky, I'm going to go ahead and use the pen tool. I use the normal pen tool. And we'll just zoom in to wherever we want to start. I'm going to start over here. And I'm going to click and drag. And I'm going to do this kind of fast, just for time's sake. So it's not going to be exactly precise or the best job, but it will show you guys how to do this at the very least. So the reason why I click and drag is because it pulls out these two little dots. And these dots allow you to move them if you hold down Alt. And so you can adjust where the line curves to. So we can go in here, click and drag, and then we can click and drag over here, and we can use these little dots to like go over humps and go around corners and get a fine adjustment of where we want our selection to be. And then we can also go back and adjust them how we need later on. Okay. And then also another tip is that you can hold down Command and click and drag the square boxes to move them. So Alt drag the dots and Command drag the boxes if you need to make adjustments. So we'll come up here, and I'm not going directly against the line because we're going to feather it later on, just because it's out of focus. All this is out of focus, and if we were to do it right against the line, it's going to look a little funky. So we're going to just blur it all out later. And these lines are honestly probably a little close. Just raise them up a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to fast forward through all this because I'm not going to do anything different than what I just told you guys. And I'll be right back when I finish the whole car. Okay, so it should be noted that, I'm not a Photoshop master, so if you have a fast way to do this, feel free to do that. But this is going to work for us for today, and this is how we're going to do it. So you can see that I've traced all the way around the car now. I've left a little bit of room along the edge just because it's blurred out, and we're going to feather it. But we're just going to go ahead and finish our selection. Just connect all the way around to where our first dot began. Go up to selection, feather it by 5. If you do 0, it's going to make like a really noticeable line. So you always want to kind of feather it out if it's out of focus. Kind of just depends. It'll take some trial and error to get it right for every photo. But there we go. So we can see that we just darken the sky a little bit, and it's looking pretty good. You get this kind of weird bokeh look in the background. That looks pretty natural to me. Yeah, that looks good. Let's just make sure everything's looking good still. So I just lowered this layer by 1 just because it looks a little bit nicer, and I'm just making sure it didn't affect any of the top of the car or anything. But no, it looks good. Looks good. Okay, so let's compare this. So looking at the sky, really consistent with the car through the glass, so I think we're good. We don't need to cut that out. Gonna go ahead and merge these, and then we'll just edit it as a whole photo now. And then if we look at this, you know, we're still far ways out, but we're getting closer. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and just go back in the filter camera raw filter, and this will let us edit it like it was in Lightroom. And let's see what we can do before we hop into anything crazy. I'm gonna make the contrast a little bit crazier. Gonna bring the highlights down again, and then take the whites up a little bit. We can go over here. We'll do a little bit of noise reduction, just to make things easier. Colors, I think we can saturate the oranges a little bit more. There we go. Luminance go up a little bit. We need to take down this noise reduction. That's too much. The noise reduction in Photoshop is way more powerful than the Lightroom one, which should be noted, but it's helping to smooth everything out. This car has a lot of defects along in. It's going to help kind of clean everything up when you use noise reduction. So in my final, yeah, there we go. Okay, yeah, let's work with this. New, or rename that. New. All right, and so we'll go into here, and whoops. I was like, why does it look so good already? All right. Next step, let's go ahead and I want to brighten up these headlights in the front of the car because it could look a whole lot better. So what I like to use for this is the I can't remember. I'm gonna mess this up. Burn tool, darken stuff, and then the dodge tool will line stuff. And also, I forgot to explain the whole layer mask thing. I will do that in a second because I just did it with the sky, and it's important. It's important to know. It's an important part of Photoshop. But if we come in here, you can see that we can brighten this up. If we change the exposure, if we hit 4 on the keyboard, it'll do 40%, 2 will do 20%, 7 will do 70%. So we'll be flipping around with that. We'll do highlights at first, and we'll just start with 30%. And we'll just brighten this up. Come in here and just do the headlights. Honestly, I'm going to go to 5. Nope, too much. We'll just do, nope, 3. That's even too much. We're going to just do this to these, and then we're just going to go to midtones. All right, so midtones, we'll do 3 again. Just go across that, go across that, go across that, go across that. We can even do the grills. Not a crazy difference you're seeing, but if we try highlights. Yeah, there we go. Come through here, just do all this. Not really a big difference along most of this. It's more of a mid-tone. Come down here, do that. Up here, go across. Make that a little bit more colorful. Just fix that in there. Make that pop a little bit more. We're going to have to see how this looks because I'm just kind of rushing through it. But already it's starting to stand out a bit more. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of brightening this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back quite a bit. Yeah. Just go back and redo that real quick. Brighten that one again. Brighten in there. Brighten all in there. Kind of hard to see. I promise something is happening. But that looks pretty consistent all throughout here. That looks good. Might just go back with midtones. Go in here real quick. Not really a big difference. Okay. The other thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and make a new layer called with hue and saturation. Because these headlights have weird reflections of red in them. So I'm going to desaturate this a little bit, leave a little bit of color in it, go pretty far down with it. And you see we have this, it's the same idea as this. We have an adjustment layer mask. And if we go ahead, so white means it's applying this filter to everything. It's desaturating the whole photo. If we hit Command I, it flips it. Now it's all black. We take our paintbrush. Right now it's applying black. We hit X, switches it to white. Now if we're going to paint it white, it's going to apply that filter to where we want it. So we go along with white in here. Desaturate the headlights. Come in here, desaturate where we want. We can desaturate that. We don't want that. Actually, I'll do that later with a clone stamp tool. Come in here, get rid of all that. Other thing we can do reds. Desaturate the reds. Cool. Come back in here, we can go back to master. We can add a little bit of color back. We can also change the hue a little bit to be a little orangier to fit the environment a little bit better. So that's looking good. You can toggle it on and off. I think that looks better. The last thing I'm going to do is take the dodge tool, or sorry, the burn tool. Make the middle of these bulbs a little bit darker, add a little bit of contrast to the headlights. Go down, we'll do 30% exposure, hit 3 to the shadows. You can darken it, we'll do 1. That'll probably be enough. Just create some contrast in the headlights so they pop a little bit. There we go. Gonna Apple Z that right side headlight. I think I did too much. I'm gonna do 5%. Otherwise it starts to look a little too contrasty. Even on this one, I think I'm just gonna bump it down to 3%. Good enough. All right. Also, still looking a little too red to me, so I'm just going to go ahead and change out the orange. How did that change? Anywho, there we go. That's looking good. All right. And so we can just merge these together really quick. Actually, I'm going to group these together, sorry. Group, just so we can look at, you kind of see how I brighten the headlights even more in this one. So we'll brighten them a little bit more. But basically same technique, dodge and burn tool, really good tool to do this with. 5. Do that. Kind of get rid of those shadows in there. And this stuff will produce grain, so just be careful with it. But kind of going against what I just did, but yeah, brighten the darks up a little bit, the midtones, make it a little bit more visible. It'll help the front end pop a little bit more. Okay, so that's looking good in my opinion. It's kind of, sorry, a little bit of a mess right here. So that's how we did the headlights in this photo. And obviously it's looking a little different because we edited it by hand. But even, if we wanted to make the ground darker now, just come into group 1, click on this photo. We can do you could also do this with an adjustment layer mask, which is a better idea. If you want to make the ground darker really quick, you can just go over, changes the midtones, shadows. Just go over, paint this down really quick, which I guess this is looking like it's a shadow more than anything. It's a little too dark. Come through here, you can see it's darkening it. So if you want to paint it really quick, you can do that. Would not recommend that way probably though. For an area like this, I'd probably make it a new adjustment layer, which we'll do right now. So if you hit Command J, we can copy this layer. I'm going to do camera raw filter again on this photo. We'll go ahead and add contrast, darken it, add a little bit of clarity. This will be for the ground. All right, we'll hit OK. The only place I like clarity is the ground. And so we'll just go ahead and get rid of everything for the ground. We'll just cut out everything but the ground. And I'm going to do this a different way than last time. You can use a pen tool if you want to be legit, or you can add a layer mask. Same technique as earlier. Hold this little bracket by the delete button, and it'll make your brush bigger. And then we'll hit X to paint black to remove it, if that is making sense to everyone still. And then also you can, once my computer loads, you can turn it on and off to see, what we've changed. So I need to go along here and be a little bit more careful now, going through here. This is kind of the really quick, cheap way to do this. I would probably pen tool it out if you want to be legit, but I'm just doing this the fast way at this point because this tutorial is going to run on for a while. Just go all throughout here, just get rid of it, clean it up real quick, get rid of what we did, the other layer. Some of you are probably like, you missed a spot, and I probably did. There we go. So let's just see. So we did a decent job. It's not overlapping under the grass too hard. A little bit on the bumper. It's fine by me. It's black. It's a black car. It's not that big of a deal. Just make sure it's not on the wheels. Go back here. There we go. Yeah. That looks pretty natural. So there's that. Alright. Hopefully everyone's liking what they're seeing so far. Hopefully I haven't made anyone mad. We're getting pretty close. So really the only things we need to do is darken the side of the car now. And this photo as a whole is a little bit brighter, a little less contrasty than the other one, which I think is fine. Just how I edited it the first time. But we'll go ahead and I want to go ahead and fix the back windows and darken the side of the car. And then the rest of it's really just clone stamping, which I'll touch on for a bit, and then we're going to be done. Just so this doesn't run on too long. But if you look in the back windshield, there's these weird spots, if you look back in here. And you can try and clone stamp them, but that's kind of the hard way to fix it. So what I'm going to do is take this layer, make another copy of it. So let me name these really quick. Ground. This will be windows, just so it makes sense to everyone. And I'm stacking these on top. If these are underneath the new layer, it wouldn't be doing anything. So we'll do windows, and I'm just going to go ahead, to fix this, I'm just going to add a ton of noise reduction, and it'll smooth everything out. We'll do that. And once it loads, you'll see a lot of this will get smoothed out. Yep. We'll do it again even. It's not that big of a deal. It's out of focus. This is kind of another quick way to fix it, but it's how I did it in this photo. So it smoothed everything out a ton in the window. Just made it look a lot better. So we'll just make another mask, invert it so it's not affecting anywhere. We can go back and brush it in. Flip it to X so it's white, so it paints it in. And try not to overlap it on anything and just get the windows. I'm doing it the quick way. You can pen tool it if you want, and it'll be precise. Probably the recommended way to do it. But I am just, for time's sake, gonna fly through this like that. Do that. And I think that is good. And then we can go ahead and take our clone stamp tool. And we want to be on the Windows layer since now the only thing we're seeing is with the windows is this, which I can see, which I kind of missed a few spots. We'll just go in here and brush it all in. It's my bad. I should be doing this more legit, but I am going quick. So now you can tell it's looking better, but there's still a few spots. So we'll go ahead and clone stamp this. So click on this layer. I try and see, like, all right, everything around this looks like it's coming from here. So we just select here, try and place it on the same level so it doesn't, and by the way, change your opacity to 100%. Mine is at 40, so that's why I didn't change a whole lot. But that looks like it's smooth. It's getting darker to lighter. So it looks smooth now. That looks good. And then over here it's a little trickier because not as much area to pull from. But if you look here, it'd be something like that. Maybe even a little darker. Go like that. It's tricky too. It's clone stamping like hurts my eyes because I'm looking at it so closely. But if we zoom out, that looks pretty good, I think, unless I'm going blind. If halfway feels like I'm going blind right now, but so that's how I do that. So before, after, zoom in, before, after. Really quick way to fix that. And then also, you'll notice there's a lot of stuff along the car, just a lot of dents and shit. So we'll go back to our new layer. You can grab the clone stamp tool and just go in here and, do this. You have to stop every once in a while just so you don't do what I'm doing right now and just drag everything in just to another place. But this card is really easy since it's black. I'm just pulling from where there's no reflection and where it's just black. So it looks the same. And do that. So you have to be very conscious about where you're clone stamping from. You want to make sure the area looks the same, which is pretty obvious, but it's not too hard to mess up a clone stamp. And also I could clone stamp this car for years because there's so many issues with the paint. But as you see, like, this is sloping down like this, so I grab a little bit higher and go down with it, just so it looks consistent. Alright, that's good enough. Normally I take more time to clean that all up, but that's looking a lot better. One other area I want to touch on is the BMW badge looks a little dark. So we'll go ahead and just grab that burn tool. Again, I forget if the burn tool makes it darker or lighter yet again. They should have named it lighter or darker. Dodge makes it lighter. So midtones, we'll just go in here, just brush in the badge again. Just make sure you're not overlapping onto the rest of the paint, making anything look weird. If we pull back, that looks a whole lot better already. Alright, so that's good. Wheels are going to touch up real quick. I want to make my hair brighter. We're going to dodge midtones. We'll just do 3. Just to shine them up real quick. Make them pop a little bit more. That's good. Okay. So if we compare this all to our original photo, not too far off. We're going to touch up the side of the car. We're going to call it a day. The only things that are really different is this one, the old final is a little contrasty, or has a little bit more contrast and a little bit different color grading, which I might fix really quick actually. And but other than that, darken the car and change the colors a little bit, and it's not far from being done. I'm going to go ahead and merge all these layers. Just so when I change the color, it changes the color of all of them. So obviously you can tell I use camera filters a lot in here to my advantage, and I just kind of work with what I know in Photoshop. I don't know it all. But hue, can make this a little bit orangier yet again. And then white balance we can adjust a little bit. Do that. It's going to be personal preference in this area. Some people might like it a little bit more out here, which I think actually looks kind of cool. Some people like it a little bit warmer. Do that, it's funny. Not really changing much. There we go, just made it a little bit orangier. And then as you can see, there we go. This second one this new edit might be a little bit better. It's not as contrasty, which looks better on my MacBook display, but overall the old photo looks better on the iPhone display because it's not as much contrast as my MacBook. I'm going to go ahead and, this old photo, obviously you can see we're getting close to it. I'm going to go ahead and delete it. I'm going to go ahead and crop this in, just do a 4x5 like it's for Instagram, and then we're going to darken well actually I'll hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just doing the easy things, taking shortcuts. Not even shortcuts, I'm just doing these things first. Let's darken the side of the car. which this will get interesting because I don't remember how I did it last time. Car. We'll go ahead and I merge layers a lot just so it keeps it cleaner. But if you want to go back and make any corrections later on, it screws you. So normally I'd leave all your layers out and I wouldn't merge them like this. But or you can always make a copy of like merge layers and make a copy, and then so you have a copy of the merged layers and a copy of the unmerged layers, and then just uneyeball the unmerged layers, so you can go back and edit them later on. But for the sake of this, I know where I'm going, so we're gonna do it like this. I'm gonna try this really quick. I'm gonna try going back in the camera raw filter and just darkening the exposure to get this side of the car darker. Which I don't really like. We're gonna skip that. Let's try the dodge tool. Which would come back here, or the burn tool, sorry. Which one makes it darker? The burn tool. Wow. Incredible. Can't remember anything. So these are kind of mid-tones, I would say. So we'll just go in here. You could do a mask, you do a pen tool, you can brush it in. I don't care. Do it however you want. I'm brushing this in today. And it's really hard to make things look consistent with this tool because the more you go over it, the darker it gets. So, I'm already messing it up pretty bad. But, I would say, let's do this really quick. Let's do another layer just so when I mess it up, I can go back. Let's do this. I'm sorry, guys. I've gotten really far ahead of myself. Correct way to do this, make a new layer. I'm going to turn this one off really quick. I'm literally just going to go along this like that. Go back. Go back. This isn't probably the best way to do this, but it is a way to do this. So take it how you want. This looks icky over here. I ended up clone stamping this out in the other edit. But yeah, basically there's that. Make another mask. Invert it again. And then we're just going to brush it onto here. Like so. Oops, I just made a rookie mistake. Again, invert this, and then you want to make sure you selected the layer mask, and then you can just brush it onto here. Which is like the quick, cheap way to do this. Sorry everyone who's cringing. Go like that. Make sure you get all this highlighted area. You can sink it into the shadows a little bit to get a little bright. This hit X, just get it off of the areas we want to be bright. I messed that one up, of course. But yeah, so that darkened the side of the car a decent amount. I would go back and clone stamp it, and you could even add in, you could even do this. Back to camera raw filter again. Sorry, everyone. You could even smooth it out a little bit using luminance, and then since it's only applied to this area because of the mask, and then you could go back, and I clone stamped it to make it look smoother. But I'm not going to bother doing that. I think it's self-explanatory. It's the same process I did up here with the rust and everything. It's just a little more complex since you're working with a weird gradient of sunset. Other things I did on these photos, we'll go back to down this one because this obviously only applies to the side that we just did. I just took the clone stamp tool and went back in here and just went like that and went like this. And just worked my way and clone stamp all of this out and made it really fine. But yeah, so I'm just going to close this really quick and let's compare it to the final one, which I got rid of because I got impatient after I cropped this. Actually, we don't need to crop it. I cropped it for Instagram to 4x5 if anyone cares. That's what I normally post, which I've said that a few times. This is a print. I was hyped. You can tell when I was done with the photo. It took me a while the first time around. So I was figuring things out. But yeah, so this is what I posted on Instagram. This is the new one we edited. So really close, and I hope I explained to you guys how to do the process. As you can see, I cleaned up the side of the car a bit. There's still a lot of dents on the hood, which I cleaned up, and I cleaned up the whole front bumper, which we didn't finish in this one. But I think I explained all the processes that you need to do in order to finish this photo, so I'm not going to completely finish it since I already did it once. But I hope this was helpful to everyone, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I kind of went fast through some of those sections, but mainly, uh, you know, you can use Lightroom and Photoshop to your advantage by creating bracketed photos in Lightroom already, and then using the pen tool and layer adjustment mask to kind of blend them together as if they were bracketed photos, which some people are going to call a really poor technique, but that's how I got this one done. And yeah, I mean, let's just take a look at that before really quick again and um, compare, I guess. I'm kind of satisfied that was how close I was able to come to my other one with the short amount of time I used. Let's call this E24 new. Great. I'll just save it as a JPEG to the desktop. Save that. Okay. And I think I have... no, I don't have it anymore. We'll just do this. So, obviously, here is the original. And if Lightroom would, you know, oh god, that's not what I wanted. Wow, I really hit a tree stump here at the end. If Lightroom would cooperate, there we go. We could see that I didn't save my photo to the desktop. Where did I save that photo to? Wow. Yep, this is how things normally go here. Save as, and where did I save that one to? Jesus, that's scary. JPEG, desktop. Okay, hopefully it goes to desktop this time. But basically, that was our old, and this is our new, which I've already shown plenty of times. But yeah, so basically you can get a really nice looking photo, which we could have even done a little bit of noise reduction to get more grain out of it, but see how much grain is in it. Not a lot. You got to be careful. We did a little too much noise reduction over here, made it look a little soft, but on the rest of it, you can see some grain over here, but not too bad. So be careful when you're using the luminance. I'd only use it on areas that are highly blurred out already. Not a good technique for the side, but it's kind of a shortcut since I didn't want to clone stamp it out. And the one I posted on Instagram, I just clone stamped it out. I didn't actually use any noise reduction on it, but the back windshield, that was a really helpful technique for. But as you can see, a big difference. And you know, those are the kind of tools I use, at least so you guys know. And you know, just use your best judgment really to you know, use these tools to create the look that you want. This is the look that I wanted. So yeah, thanks guys for watching, and I appreciate all the support. So thank you.